Welcome to 100% Hockey, Best on Best. John Shannon here, soon to be joined by Scotty Bowman and Mike Zeisberger. Day 4 of the men's hockey tournament. A little bit of everything today. Sweden, Slovakia, 5-3 for the Swedes. With a little bit of a hook is that goal differential became a factor. And at the end of the game, the winning team had to pull its goalie to try to get another goal. They didn't get it. And in the end, it allowed the Slovaks, who started the tournament so strong against the Finns, they won the pool. They are the number 1 seed from that pool, the B pool, and they were now qualified for the quarterfinals. They don't have to play a qualifying game on Tuesday. What really added to that was the Finns beating Italy 11-0 because of goal differential. That became an important thing. And then the other ones, Latvia beat Germany 4-3, and the Americans got a scare from Denmark before turning it on. Jack Eichel, the Tkachuk brothers, doing what they do so well. The Americans won 6-3. So it sets up the final day of the preliminary round, including Canada playing France and the Americans playing Germany. At that point, we'll know who are the top teams in all 3 pools and who is the top second-place team. Those 4 teams will advance to the quarterfinals, and the other 8 teams will play via seeding, and if they're tied, it's goal differential, via seeding in the qualification games on Tuesday. Ken Hitchcock took the day off. I don't blame him. Tired of hearing from me. Tired of hearing from Millard. Went and got a pretty good replacement in Scotty Bowman and Mike Zeisberger from NHL.com. It's Best on Best, 100% Hockey. Back after this.
NHL TV is now on DAZN. Hockey lives here.
Here we go.
Watch every game from every team. The best players in the world. And the coldest plays on ice. Watch up to 4 games at once for the ultimate NHL experience. Sign up now at DAZN.
Welcome back to 100% Hockey, Best on Best. As we mentioned in the opening, it was a crazy day in Milan for hockey with the 2 most important words, goal differential. Forget about wins and losses. It's all about goal differential. Pleased to have Scotty Bowman, the most winning coach in the National Hockey League, member of the Hockey Hall of Fame, and NHL.com's Mike Zeisberger. All right, Scotty, when was the last time you did a playoff series with goal differential?
When was the last time I watched a game the team was leading and took the goalie out?
That's right. Jacob Markstrom had to go to the bench because the Swedes needed another goal in order to put themselves in a spot. How silly is that they win the game and are relegated to the 3rd spot in that pool?
Well, like you said, the round robin, they go on goal differential all the time, and yeah. I know what you mean. We're not supposed to rack up the score at times, but it would be a good idea today, and they did it. Finland,
well, certainly the Finns did the 11-0. That's for sure when they beat the Italians. Scotty, what just your thoughts so far on the quality of hockey of the tournament?
Oh well, it's I'm impressed that the teams have got better. I know that it doesn't show up all the time in every game, but certainly the European players that have come in the NHL have made their country teams a lot better. And so there, you see, in most teams, you got enough NHL players that can make it competitive. And of course, I've always felt with the European teams, even in the junior ranks, there's been a lot of upsets. And because they've had a pretty good record of having goaltenders, especially the Czech Republic, and of course the Russians aren't there now. The Soviets aren't in these Olympics, but I just find that the goaltending was kept a lot of European teams. We saw a lot of great goaltending, and that's what they're going to need, of course, to go further.
Mike, the big story of the day, other than goal differential, obviously, is, I guess, the scare that the Danes put into the Americans. They led a couple of times. The United States won eventually 6-3. To me, it's the second game in a row that it's taken a while for the Americans to warm up. What do you think?
Well, before we start, John, I just want to tell a really quick story, if I may. 1998, a young Mike Zeisberger at the Toronto Sun was actually doing a little bit of baseball, a little bit of NFL at the time. And my boss, the Hockey Hall of Fame sports writer, Scott Morrison, came to me and he said, I'd like you to ghostwrite a column for Scotty Bowman with the 1998 Olympics coming up. And I'm like, Scotty Bowman, come on, really? And so I started doing these columns with Scotty. And I remember the first one, John, remember, NHLers back in the Olympics. Wayne Gretzky is there. The Americans had just come off winning the World Cup in 1996. And the first column I do is Scotty talking about the Czechs, about Dominik Hasek, about Jaromir Jagr, how Jagr can, on the big ice, can shield the puck in the other team's end, and that in close games with Hasek there's a way where, watch out for the Czechs.
Oh.
John, who ended up winning that gold medal?
Yeah.
Hey?
Well, you knew all about Dominik Hasek.
Who won the gold medal?
Well, we know the Czechs. We know the Czechs, and Dom won the medal. We know that.
So the soothsayer Scotty, while everybody's talking about Gretzky and the '96 team. So
okay, I'm not going to ask Scotty yet who's going to win the tournament. That would kind of ruin the next 8 days of shows.
Yeah.
But
yeah, you were talking about the Americans. Yeah, look at. I mean, I was talking to Dan Bylsma the other day, who was the coach in 2014 for the U.S., and he said, coming out of the gate sometimes, it's very, very difficult because these games matter. Even though a lot of teams you play in the preliminary rounds may not be equal in talent, they're ready to go. And you've got to be careful because there are things like goal differential. And the U.S. today, at one point, I believe they were losing 2-1. And, there's a little bit of gasping of there and give them credit. They stayed the course. They deserved to win. But I really think that the fact that, even the Swiss, with Canada the other day, they gave them a good fight at the beginning, even though Canada, ended up, let's face it, by the end of the game dominating. But I would think you'd want a little bit of a test early on just to get that, and I'm not saying that anybody would be on their laurels or anything like that, but don't you think, Scotty, a little bit of a scare, and guys saying...
Yeah, and he took Mike Sullivan, the coach, took out, he had to play again tomorrow. He knew that, so he put Hellebuck on the bench today. He put in Swayman. I don't know how they rate their. They got 3 of them. They got Ottinger there too, but Swayman actually had a tough time today. He had the one from center ice, and he had another one from the blue line that picked the corner. He's standing in the middle of the net, but he just had a tough game. So, but I don't think that looking at what Sullivan was the big picture, he probably felt, I'm not as interested in goal differential as getting my team ready to win games, and that's what I think happened today. That they wanted to win the game, and we know that he's got a lot of skill, and it was proven in the Four Nations, and now it's even different because if he does play Canada, and we do think that's going to be the matchup, it's a one game. And it's in one game, when you're down to one game, I've been on both sides, and it's more it's not a crapshoot as much with these teams because they know each other, but it's not as easy one game, and you get nervous. Canada's going to be the favorite, I think. I mean, certainly, if they keep playing the way they are, and the players are players, and I've seen it happen so much. You start the game, you don't get the first goal, you get behind, and you start pressing, and that's when goaltending starts coming up, and there's a lot of factors. But it's a one-game tournament, which I think is really tough to win.
The other aspect of what the Americans did today, it turned, in my opinion, and Scotty, I'd love yours, it turned in the face-off circle. And Jack Eichel was dominant in the face-off circle. And to the point where, I mean, Jack Eichel, I think now has become the best American-born player in the National Hockey League, so therefore in the world, don't you think?
Yeah, he's got everything going now. They somehow, when he got to Vegas, they worked on him as a two-way player. He was always a great offensive talent with Buffalo, but defensively he was young, like most of them are. He didn't pay much attention to it. But you're right, and with Matthews and I mean, the center ice position for both teams is so strong. I mean, it's amazing when you look at Canada. They're moving McKinnon onto the wing to get him with McDavid and things like that. But why they can do that is they got a lot of flexibility. They moved Suzuki into center and didn't miss a beat the other night.
Yeah, I want to go back to the Americans and Swayman.
Yeah.
And your discussion about it's a short tournament, so it's one game. Do you risk Jeremy Swayman again, or do you think Jeremy Swayman is now living in the press box? Mike, you first.
Go ahead, Mike.
Well, I was a little surprised with Swayman, to be honest. Not that he's doesn't deserve to be there or that, but I thought at some point that Ottinger would be the next guy in line. I really did. And I mean, that's what you have when you have a collection of riches in goal, like the Americans do. And so you wonder, I mean, sure, I assume that Hellebuck's going to go in and we'll ride it to the end. But John, we talked about earlier in the week, my one thing with Connor Hellebuck, and in no way am I blaming him for the McDavid goal in Four Nations, not at all. But we've seen in the playoffs how wobbly he can be at times. Whereas he's kind of like the opposite of Jordan Binnington, because Jordan Binnington has had a Matt type year. He goes in for Canada the other night, pitches a shutout. We saw it in Four Nations when people doubted him. He went in there. Connor Hellebuck has a lot of individual honors, but you could argue when playoff time comes around, like I said, he's a bit wobbly. And so it'll be interesting. I think that Sullivan will go back to Connor Hellebuck. But let's see, as the competition increases, the further you go on, let's see what happens, and let's see who his backup is in the next game. Is it going to be Swayman, or does Ottinger slide in there? It's fascinating.
Scotty?
Yeah. I mean, it's a tough call. I think he put him in. I don't think he's worried about the goal differential, and he wanted to look at him, and who knows? I mean, they play tomorrow, and now I always thought Ottinger was unlike Mike. I thought he was the second rated on their goaltending, but at the same time, they weren't worrying about the goal differential. They were just worried about winning the game, and he got beat on two. And the announcer, I don't know how, he probably got it through. I'm not big on that stuff, anyways, but he said that because of two long shots, that his save percentage was, I don't know what. Well, I wouldn't worry about that, because I think in these games they're not going to be worried about long shots as they're going to be trying to get breakaways.
So I'm told it's supposed to be Jake Ottinger tomorrow. That Mike Sullivan's going to play all three goalies in the round robin.
Okay.
But is this Connor Hellebuck's job to lose in the end? Do you think as they get into the one and done games, Scotty, we're going to see Connor Hellebuck? Would be your thought?
I do, because going back to the last year in the tournament, I think he's their number one.
Mhm.
And I know he hasn't had the year that he had last year because the team hasn't either. But yeah, he's a goalie that, I mean, when you're you're not trying to win 4-7, you're trying to win one game. And I would certainly look at Hellebuck. I mean, he's won a lot of good games for Winnipeg when they were winning,
Mm-hmm. I know where you stand, Mike, right?
Yeah, I mean, I would go with Hellebuck, but you got to have your number two guy ready to go. And to me, like Scotty said, to me, I was a little surprised that it was Swayman today. Let's see how Ottinger does tomorrow.
We're going to take a break, but when we come back, I want to talk about the two other teams that we expected to be quote unquote competitive in this series: the Finns and the Swedes. Up until the 11-0 Finnish victory today, albeit over Italy, I think that we would be unanimous in suggesting that we've been disappointed in both of those hockey clubs. But this goes back to the way this tournament is formatted and when you have to be at your best. So let's take a break. It's Scotty Bowman, Mike Zeisberger with me, John Shannon, on a special edition Best on Best of 100% Hockey. Car shopping should be exciting, not exhausting. That's where Car Gurus comes in. They have advanced search tools, unbiased deal ratings, and price history, so you know a great deal when you see one. It's no wonder that Car Gurus is the #1 rated car shopping app in Canada. When you're car shopping on your phone, it shouldn't be a maze. You need to see all the information. With the Car Gurus app, you can. Powerful search tools that you see deal ratings, price history, and dealer reviews on listings all in one place. And you can turn on real-time price drop alerts so you never miss a great deal. Car Gurus connects you with trusted dealerships when you're ready, ensuring a transparent, hassle-free buying process. Buy your next car today at cargurus.ca. Make sure your deal is the best deal. That's cargurus.ca. cargurus.ca. All right, we've kind of dissected what the Americans did and what they're going to have to do. And I mean, I think we're all guilty of, either wishful thinking or predicting Canada-USA long-term. But neither team is guaranteed a spot in the gold medal game. There is going to be some opposition that are going to have to play. And I think we all expected, guys, the Swedes and the Finns to be the best of the opposition. Scotty, what do you make of the Swedes, the way their game is rounding into form?
They have players that we know playing in the NHL. I mean, 19 of them were first-round picks. We know that.
Wow.
I think they're concerned about their goaltending more than anything. They tried Gustafsson first, and then now they went with Markstrom today. And they do. The Swedes are not the same as the Finns. The Finns, I always felt the Finns were the kind of team, even in their juniors, they could really clog up, and they didn't forecheck. They could play the trap as well as anybody. And I guess they surprised the Swedes with the aggressiveness, and they got some penalties and everything. But Sweden has the ability to have a good offense. They have good players. I don't know if they can defend as well as some of these other teams. I wouldn't discount them, but at the same time, they need much better goaltending for sure. Much better.
Mike?
Well, I think we knew when we saw the groups that when Sweden and Finland were slotted in together, that there was going to be one team that was disappointed. And going in, especially when I looked at the back end, John, of the Swedes, when you have Dahlin, when you have Victor Hedman, when you have Erik Karlsson, when Forsling, when you have guys of that ilk, I just thought that they were going to be so strong from the back end up.
Right.
And it was really. I was kind of surprised the way I thought the Finns took the game to them. I thought, as Scotty mentioned, the physicality, with which Finland played. I mean, you could tell that's a rivalry game. They don't like each other. That's the way the game played out. But yeah, their goaltending hasn't been. We talked about it. After their opening game, their goaltending was so and has been. And then there's, even up front. I mean, Philip Forsberg, I think he got in their opening game. I think he got one shift in the third period.
Right.
So
Ekman Larsson didn't play, and Ekman Larsson didn't play at all in the first game.
Yeah. So, they're still trying to find themselves. I'm not counting them out by any means. They're far too talented, but look at the way that things are shaping up. They put themselves in a little bit of a hole, and their road to the gold medal game is going to be a little bit more difficult than it is from some of the other favorites.
Scotty, how would you define the difference?
John, Hedman and Carlson, they played together quite a bit, all growing up in juniors. Yeah. Now, they don't play together. I think the fact that USA and Canada have NHL more than one, a bench load of coaches, they know the players. I don't know if Finland, I'm not taking anything away from those people, but Anders Sorensen's the only experienced NHL, and he has not real experience with Sweden. And I don't know if those teams, they may not know as much about, like it'd be like you asking me questions this year about the Finnish or the Swedish league. I wouldn't know anything about it. I just watch it.
But they don't play enough on the national level anymore to anybody to read what the guys are like.
I don't think that they follow the NHL like we would.
I mean, you've coached Swedes and you've coached Finns. Yeah. Is there a palpable difference in the way they approach the game?
I don't think so. I doubt it. No, I mean, Finland, maybe they changed maybe a decade ago. They were tough to play against because they played the trap. I mean, they played the trap as well as any team I ever saw, but I don't know if they could do that in this type of hockey because it's different. There's no center line. It's fast. It's a totally different game.
I'm curious. One of the things, and Mike kind of touched on it there, extra defensemen. So you got 7D, extra forwards. How do you manage a bench with extra bodies, or do you just focus on what you have, and then if you need the extra D man or you need the extra forward, you plug them in?
It's what you could get used to, because there wasn't a tournament I was involved in all my years coaching. Every time we played the Soviet Union, their biggest concern was we want 20 players dressed. We don't want 18 or 17 skaters at that time. Sometimes they gave in a bit. We want 4 units of 5. They played 8 defensemen. They got power plays. They never took players from any of the other, 4 or 5-man units. They just who's up next. And the Russians did that so successful. I know they had the edge because they had the best players in Europe and they were pros, but the Russians wanted to play 4 or 5-man units.
And of course, I mean, 5 of them showed up on your bench once.
Well, I think, though, John, one thing in this tournament, and Canada showed it to me in the 2 games, is the players, like the first game that Canada played, McKinnon played 14 minutes. Crosby had 16 or 17. McDavid had, I think, 18. So, like, that's so unusual. But they've got enough players, and I mean, the shifts are short, and that's what I keep coming back to. People ask me, how do you assess if there is a game? I said, well, I'm looking at the U.S. Defense Corps. I like a lot of their players. How can you not like Quinn Hughes? How can you not like Werenski? They're going to be in the Norris Trophy voting. Slavin's there usually most of the time, but Canada, with the depth that they have, I think they'll try to play like they did a full court press. They'll come after if they're like and I learned this a long time ago when I first started coaching, and Joe Blake was the one again that told me. He said, "You have a choice to play in either end. Play in the other end." And I think that's what John Cooper. I was amazed the way Canada forechecked, and I'm not taking it away from those defensemen because they may find a way. Mike Sullivan's a good coach too, and he's got a good staff. He's got people that have been there a long time. So I'm anxious to see, because I've got them rated. The Canadian forwards are so strong offensively on their own teams, and we didn't even talk about Celebrini yet,
No.
and he was put in a tough spot, and he didn't look any different than any veteran player. And when you get Crosby and McKinnon, and they've got good depth players.
Well, I tell you what, Mike, you've got to wonder what Mike Sullivan's going to do, because I don't think he would be pleased coming out of the game today with his forwards. I think that they struggled a bit today at times. I don't think Austin Matthews had a very good game. I'm not going to get you on the Austin Matthews platform there. I'm not going to put you on that one again, because we've discussed that. But the strength of that team is on the blue line, isn't it?
Very much so, and it surprises me with their forwards, because they do have a lot of depth, and I can remember, I believe it was in the Four Nations championship game where Kyle Connor was made a healthy scratch, and that really did surprise me. And that if the American forwards continue to struggle, what's everybody going to start talking about? Why is Cole Caulfield not there? Right? Why is Jason Robertson not there? Those two guys were two of the highest scorers in the NHL among American-born players. And, I don't think they're anywhere near a panic. I think they have too many good players. I just think, Mike Sullivan may throw his forward names in a blender, and we'll see a lot of different forward combinations. To Scotty's point, what about John Cooper? Saying, hey, since Dreisaitl's not on our team, we're going to take three of the other four leading scorers in the National Hockey League in McKinnon, in McDavid, and in Celebrini, and put them together. I mean, there's power lines, and then there's power lines, and that was very, very impressive. And I'll tell you what, and we haven't even touched on this. Connor McDavid, if anybody even, I don't care about the analytics or anything, go to games and watch. If there were still people out on this planet that thought Connor McDavid was not the best hockey player on the globe, watch the first two games. This guy is on a mission. He's waited his entire career to play best on best. And, it's just a pleasure to watch this guy. And the intangible with Tim, to me, Scotty, is that you can see the fire in this kid's eyes, okay? This is like, it's on. There's no distractions. There's no pressure. I'm going to be the one that leads this team.
Yeah, and he knows, and he knows enough about hockey that he knows how good he and McKinnon have been waging a battle in scoring now for a couple of seasons, and so he knows hockey. You're right. I was going to mention about John, when John was mentioning about Matthews, that I'm watching the game today. I don't know if I don't have the sheet, I don't have the ice time, but it just seemed that the two Tkachuks and Eichel, they were on, and I look at another line, like he's gonna Sullivan's gonna have to he probably knows about it, but Matthews, Boldy, and Gensel, I mean, you look at the career those guys have had this year.
Yeah.
Like I thought they kind of got bypassed a little bit today, but I'm sure
Well,
when
here,
they play,
let me just read this to you,
yeah, give me two.
and you're going to be shocked. Brady and Matthew played. One played 15-28, the other played 16-16. Jack Eichel played 16-59,
Good.
and Austin Matthews played more than all three of them.
So that means that we got to get better hockey out of him, because when you don't notice a player, that's right. I think for the USA team, they have got to make sure that they've got more than that one line that's played, because they were I thought the Tkachuk and Eichel line was territorially was in the other team's end most of the time. They didn't have to spend much time in their own end. I didn't say the same thing about the Matthews line, but in all fairness, maybe they played more together. You know, I don't know. The U.S. has that development team. I don't know if Matthews, he wouldn't have been in the same class as Boldy, because he's young, Boldy, and also Gensel. I don't know about him either. But I still think that the USA has enough players to put a pretty good offensive team. And we keep saying, well, the Canadian forwards are better. Well, you know, I wouldn't know how much better they are, and they give the edge to the U.S. defense. And I mean, I like the way those defensemen play, but I know Cooper's kind of a guy, like he's got his team in Tampa, and I watched him all the time, John. And you know, he went out this year. They got that Holmberg, and they got Gergensen, and they got the one they got back from Seattle,
Yanni Gourde.
Yanni Gourde. And I'm telling you, he's changed. He had some injuries to point, and he's lost some other players. But boy, he's got that line. They're all plus players. They don't score 15 goals, but they score 7, 8, 9, 10. And you know, he's got a job for all his players, and he brings up players from the minors through necessity, and they play. I don't know where they get so many players. I mean, if you look at the roster that he had this year, I bet you most people in hockey would wonder where are they from?
Yeah.
They're not draft picks. They're in Syracuse, I think, most of them, and so I think that the U.S. team getting away from it a bit, if they can get Matthews' line, I mean they look pretty good on a couple of goals. And Jack Hughes is a player they might sneak in there if he can play like he's healthy. I don't know if he is. He can also be a dangerous kind of player in a sudden death game.
Well, I'll tell you what. So Sunday afternoon, day 5 of the hockey tournament has the United States playing Germany. It's the late game. One of the early games is Canada versus France. Mike, are we going to see some goal differential issues? What do you? I mean, what's the other thing is that Leon Draisaitl would probably love to throw something into the spokes of the American bicycle somehow, some way. The Germans have been a bit of a disappointment. They lost to the Latvians today. So that game's going to be interesting. And Canada-France, I don't know what to make of it other than just making sure you don't get any injuries.
Yeah, and I think you'll see, John Cooper has tried to use a lot of different players. Brad Marchand sat out the last game. I think he'll draw back in. It'll be interesting to see who gets the rest. But, John, to Scotty's point, I think that this may be John Cooper's best coaching job that he's done in his time in Tampa, given what he's had to overcome. And I thought it was really interesting. If you've watched the last 2 games, which the score has been one-sided, 5-0 the first game, 5-1 the second game in the 2 games that Canada has played. At the end of the game, instead of addressing his team in the dressing room, And, I guess it's scattered because the players have to go through the mix zone and route to the dressing room. If you watch, after the final horn goes and they play the anthem, he gathers the entire team at the bench and has something to say to them. I think, it's a summation of the game that they've just played and what they have ahead. But you watch, these are all star players, and the way that they're attentive to what John Cooper is saying, I think that's pretty impressive. And, it was noticed by a lot of people that, what's he doing? Why are the players gathering at the end of the game after the anthem and talking to him there? And I think, whatever he's doing, is working. He has their attention. I think that, Four Nations, a lot of guys got to know him. And I think he's put a lot of, you saw the other night, Sidney Crosby, after his teammates had already gone off the ice, he sat on the bench, looked around a bit, and then he left. I mean, when you have a guy like Sidney Crosby on the team, even the McDavids, even the McKinnons, they all look at him in that kind of, wow, Sid's going to lead us into the battle. We're going to follow him. And so far, the John Cooper, Sidney Crosby relationship has been outstanding. And John, I expect them to be on the gas pedal from the get-go tomorrow.
Yeah. Just by the way, so there's a couple of practical reasons why Cooper does the pep talk or the debrief there. You're right. Both teams have to go through the mix zone. And what happens is the losing team goes through first. Then the winning team goes through. So you can't, if you're the winning team, you have to wait on the ice before the losing team goes. You got to wait anyway. And then so Cooper's explained it to the fact that I'm not going to be, once we, and by the way, he didn't call it a nice name like the mix zone. He says, I'm not going to be, I'm not going to be speaking to these guys for 25 or 30 minutes. So I might as well take advantage of the time now.
Get the message done fresh.
Well, it's fresh. And then those guys can go on their merry way once they get out of the dressing room. Scotty, I know you know John Cooper well from your time in and around Tampa. There is something that is pure common sense with this guy. He's an intelligent guy, but there's something. He's a sponge for information too, isn't he?
Oh, sure. And, when you mentioned it, John, what better time to talk to the players before they went anywhere, before they went on their cell phones and started texting? Nothing was better than right after the game. He probably had a short message, but it's probably going to be sinking in better than any other place. Yeah. And I know I know a lot of the things that he preaches and coaches, and like even like we've talked a lot, and he's said things like, we're talking about what he admired about our team in Montreal. He said he read about the team, and he said, he tries to play like he said, when you get a lead and you have a good team, he said, I want to keep making plays. I never knew everything about that originally, and now I understand. And if you look at his team, he doesn't ever go into a defensive shell. He keeps the pace up. He keeps the pace up, and he's got a lot of ability to do that. I mean, it's amazing. I read about his record and asked him once, where, how could you go to so many places and win? He said, well, I left the places because I wanted to get advancement. And it's true. Every league he went in, he won. And the biggest thing he ever did was American Hockey League, 28 games, victories in a row. Mm-hmm. And John, a lot of those players are still, well, a few of them are still with him in Tampa.
That was that Norfolk team that won the Calder Cup. Before we let you both go, and the time's been great, information's been great. I just want to ask you: there are some downsides to this tournament, and one of them was in the Canada-Swiss game, and that was the injury to Kevin Fiala. Has had surgery in Milan, is done for the season, so the Kings are losing one of their top players. Does that change, Mike, your opinion of this tournament, and should it?
No, because we saw in Sochi what happened to John Tavares.
But that two wrongs don't make a right.
No, but I mean, there was precedent. There was precedent for it. I remember they carried him out on the ice to get the gold medal. I do feel bad for Kenny Holland, though, because, right before the trade freeze, he goes out, he gets Panarin, he gives a team that can't score a lot some hope by bringing in a scorer. And now one of his top existing scorers is down. And it's, the general managers talked about it before the tournament, that you just hope guys get through it and they get healthy. But they all know the risk. And it's just unfortunate if it's your team and one of your guys that happens to get on the wrong side of one of these things. And I know, most importantly, we all wish Kevin Fiala a speedy recovery. He's a hell of a player. He always represents Switzerland when he has a chance. And I also thought, at the end of the game, because he got tied up with Tom Wilson, and there's always a lot of white noise around Tom Wilson, that at the end of the game, you saw Nico Hischier kind of tap Tom Wilson as a gesture of saying, we all know it was nothing to do with you. It was something that happens in the sport, unfortunately. And like I said, we all wish Kevin Fiala get well soon.
Scotty?
Well, that's right. I mean, these games are at the highest level that you've seen for a long time. There's because of the way the schedule is and everything, and it's amazing that the players don't hold back at all, and they just think that this is something that's been deprived of the NHL players for a long time, and then they came back, and it's been tough to arrange it all. And I guess the risks are there because even some of the teams might have to even play an extra game. But I mean, cooler heads must have figured this out. This is what we want to do, and we want to promote our game. And this is what you're doing. Is the attendance to these games on TV must be tremendous.
Gentlemen, thanks for the time.
Thank you,
Scotty Bowman, Mike Zeisberger.
Always great to see you.
Oh, by the way, Scotty, how was Mike's ghostwriting? Was it okay?
Mike?
How was his ghostwriting when he wrote that column for you in '98?
I had to change most of it.
Yeah. Real quick, John, before we end.
Thanks.
He always, Scotty would ask me, did that, he would explain something to me, joking aside, and then he would say, does that make sense? Does that make sense? And I'm there going you're Scotty freaking Bowman, the most winning coach in NHL history. I'm a road hockey player from Scarborough, okay? Damn right it made sense.
Oh.
Okay, boys, thanks.
Thank you, Scotty. Thank you, Mike.
Take care, guys.
Bye for now. Bye.
Back after this on 100% Hockey.
With the NHL app, you can listen to every NHL game right from your phone. And with home and away broadcast feeds, you choose your way to listen.
And he scores!
Whether you're at work, at the gym, or stuck in traffic, the NHL app puts you right in the action all season long. Every team, every game, everywhere you go. Download the NHL app and never miss a moment.
Thanks for listening to 100% Hockey Best on Best. Don't forget, we're on YouTube. We are on all the platforms, Apple, Amazon Music, Spotify, and as many platforms as you can get through our friends at Audio Boom. 4 games on Sunday to end the preliminary tournament. Switzerland plays Czechia, Canada, France, Denmark, Latvia, USA, Germany. And really what happens out of those games is once we decide the winners of the 3 pools, they and the top number 2 team in the tournament will advance directly to the quarterfinals. The others will be seeded to play in the qualification games on Tuesday. That's it from now. Thanks to Scotty and Mike for joining us. We'll talk to you again tomorrow after Canada, France, and after USA versus Germany. John Shannon, 100% Hockey, Best on Best.